When was the last time you made a specific request? Now, I mean a real request where you ask someone for something specific that you want or need. Most people have a really difficult time with just making a request. What do we do instead of requesting? We do a lot of different things. One thing we do instead of requesting is complain. I don't want to make a request, so I'm just going to complain. I complain to different people, I complain to myself, hoping maybe that somehow magically what I need will appear in the context of my complaining enough about it. Now, complaint is, you could say, a passive-aggressive way of making a request. Something's getting communicated, but you're not really making yourself vulnerable. You're not putting yourself at stake. The other thing we do instead of make a request is we make statements. For example, you might be talking to a friend and they might say something like, "I'm flying in on Saturday and I don't have a ride from the airport." Well, that's not a request. That's a statement. What do you do when someone makes a statement, but it's actually not a request? Well, let me encourage you not to respond to a statement as if it is a request. If you do, you'll be training people to not make requests of you, just to make statements and expect you to read between the lines, whether they're obvious or not, and meet the need that they are expressing in their statement. The third thing we do instead of making requests is sometimes we just make a demand. Do this, don't do that. It's not a request. We're telling people, this is what you have to do. This is what you should not do or should do. Now, when you make demands often enough, you might find that you meet with some resistance because most people don't like to be on the receiving end of a demand. So be listening as well. If someone is just making demands over and over, you might pause and say, "I don't know if you're aware of this, but you've made several demands. Do you have a specific request?" Just ask them, make a request for a request. That also works. What gets in the way of making requests? Probably our pride. Making a request is vulnerable because the other person could say yes or they could say no. Either one is an acceptable answer to a request. Now, obviously, when we make the request, we want it to be a yes, but the reality is when we put ourselves out there and ask for something, a no is just as valid as a yes response. So sometimes we avoid making requests because we don't want to hear a no. Sometimes we avoid making requests because we've been disappointed. We've made the request in the past and maybe it didn't get met, or maybe we heard a no when we really didn't expect it. And in order to protect ourselves, we do something different next time. We get suspicious. We don't want to put ourselves at stake. Sometimes the resistance to making a request is the result of bitterness, is the result of unforgiveness for another request somewhere down the line that didn't get met, something that didn't happen that we really, really wanted to have happen. How many requests do you think you make in a day or a week or a month? If you ask one person and they say no, do you just shut it down, give up? Do you ask other people? Do you revise the request? Do you negotiate? Or do you just not make the request in the first place? I'm going to ask you to think about it because it's really critical in a healthy relationship of any kind to make requests, to receive requests, to be on the receiving end of a request. How many requests are made of you in a day? Do you usually say yes? Do you often say no? Does it just depend? Or do people not make requests of you? That could be something to consider. I wonder why people aren't making requests of me. Do they not see me as a resource? Do I seem like I'm not open to requests? Perhaps I haven't given off the signal that I'm willing to participate in that way with them. So take your temperature on requests. How many have I made? How many have I received? If the answer is not a lot, it's a good time to check in and see what's underneath. Now think of the context of your relationships. What types of relationships would you make requests in? Wouldn't it be amazing if in your community or in your family or at your workplace, you created a culture of requests where it was okay, it was encouraged to make requests, to receive requests, to say either yes or no to requests. Let's make it a normal part, a healthy part of our day-to-day interactions and see what abundance could open up that right now might seem completely impossible, but maybe you just haven't asked. If this was resourceful for you, like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, make a comment. I'd love to hear from you. And check out this next video. I think it would be a great follow-up.